I don't have a story. I don't have 3 points. I don't have a PowerPoint. I'm not a theologian. I don't read theology. I'm not a psychologist, a campus minister. But I'm a teaching brother who's passionate about our vocation as brothers of the Christian schools. And what I hope that you heard in the last number of days from the brothers on Monday, our partners and associates on Tuesday, yesterday and again today, is that you and I are vital to this endeavor. This doesn't work without us. Clam, our clam, lamb, palm, none of this works unless we are here. You heard the story of the men who were here talking about their vocation. You heard the partners who spoke the other day. In every case, it was a brother or a group of brothers who pulled them into this endeavor. And that's really the only piece that I can convey to you about vocation promotion. It's not a poster. It's not a brochure. It's not a little binder for each community. It's not a list of best practices. It's you and me having the guts, a visceral thing from our belly, to ask young men, to ask even older young men to come join us in this magnificent vocation in the church. That's the best vocation promotion that we can do. That's all I wanted to say. You've heard enough. Thanks very much.
Okay, brothers, I'm really happy you're all back. After I wished you a happy summer yesterday, I thought you would take the hint, but you didn't. So anyway, thank you for coming back. And thank you to our panelists for an outstanding presentation this morning. And that video was fantastic. Brothers and friends, let me explain how the rest of this morning is going to go. We're going to end promptly at noon because we have some constitutive assembly / chapter business to attend to at precisely noon. So the way we're going to handle this concluding session for this morning is, you may have noted in your schedules that there's something called the normal question and answer session, but there was going to be an open mic session. We're blending all of that together right now to offer you an opportunity to spend some quality time with our young brothers and guys who are in discernment and thinking about our life, and just to have a conversation with them. The one thing that struck me about this morning that I want to note by way of creating a context for this conversation is the honesty with which these guys were sharing with us. And I think that they would welcome your honesty as well. And what I'm liking about all of this is, I think, by dint of the good planning that has led to this really nice retreat, this room is a place where we feel we can be honest and vulnerable and share hopes and so forth with our young friends here and they with us. So in that spirit, I'd like to open up once again, this room to any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, reactions. What are you thinking right now?
Over the years, visitors, I would share with a visitor what the visitor was at the time. My sense of it always seems simplistic, but I would say, is this all there is? That Peggy Lee song for me was haunting. Is this all there is? I entered the Brothers, I think I was 30 or 32, can't remember anymore. But anyway, even then, my sense of, is this what my life had been up to that point? Is this all there is? It sounds less than adequate to explain why I began the journey with the Brothers, but that's what I did.
Did you have any sense of something like that in your own journey to where you are today? I can speak for myself. Two experiences. One was seeing my contemporaries, not a bad way. They chose careers that they studied art form, college and stuff, but they still felt, in a sense, like they were longing for something else too. And I was blessed to work with the brothers during the summers when I was in contact. And I would juxtapose the summer jobs that I would have before working with the brothers, whatever it was, and then the time I spent with the brothers. And the difference was amazing. The things that got you out of bed. It's those experiences of having the fulfillment of every day, having something that energizes you in a sense that more than just a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 day. But for me, that was.
There's a second part to the story earlier, the couple part, and the student asked me about the life of the brother being boring, as it were, and at the beginning it really was, because what he saw was that it was a brother in front of a classroom teaching, and then he goes home. So he thought that was a bit boring, and so forth. And I said, yeah, that kind of is, but then I also said at the same time as well, once you're actually in it, and put all of your heart and soul into what you want to do, the little boring things actually becomes great, extraordinary as it were. And I say that as also as a word of thanks to you, all the brothers, as well as the district, in that had I not been, when I first entered, I really didn't figure out why I choose to enter. I just did. But 10 years now later, I find out that I'm doing all of these wonderful things of which I never knew that I would have and could have done. And one of which is also thank you to Brother Dennis Lee as well and Joe Mann for helping me. So like, yeah, you can do this too. Is that this weekend I'll be flying out to Bolivia for a month for a short summer mission trip. Really, you could do that? But there are wonderful opportunities, and that this is not it. It is a future of which we create, and not something of which we look for and try to find in different places. We create them, and you, the brothers, have allowed that for me. So thank you also.
I would think, you asked the question, is this all there is? And for a few years, I went back home to Detroit, and I worked at a small Catholic grade school during the day and ran a restaurant at night. And Catholic school being what they are, you need to eat. I like to eat. Talk about then I asked myself, is this all it is? Is that what life was about? Because I was teaching, but I didn't find there was more. And through the help of spiritual direction, and actually a Capuchin, who said, you need to go knock on the door of the brothers again. And, it was actually, I remember the day I wrote the letter through, it was Joe Joswiak and Richie Galvin who came to the restaurant one night. And then, it seemed like, is this providential, as Bob Hazard likes to say. Everything goes back to Providence, Rhode Island. And I wrote a letter to the provincial at the time, Frank Byrne. And I remember my first paragraph being, after you read this first sentence, if you want me to go away, stop reading now. And I received a call right away. And I would think the whole idea is that Tony and I will talk about similar experiences, seeing that we're still younger brothers. And you can keep saying that for a while. But you've had a life experience, and then you come back, or you come in and say, you're looking for something more. And one of my favorite phrases, according to Vermont LaSalle and the Holy Family community, and even the brothers at CBA, I don't need to read the brothers' rule. I just have to watch the brothers. They are what we call the living rule. And I think, like everyone said today, the gentleman from St. Gabe's, is we want the brothers to be authentic. You know, be who you say you want to be or you're claiming to be. And I see that in the younger guys, the men at St. Raymond's, from the community of De La Salle, and I look around and you're the living rule. And I'm going to follow.
Fred?
Like, excuse me, like Ed Phelan, 3 points. One is that I remember the former visitor of Vietnam, who spoke to the chapter of 1993, who had been in prison for 10 years, and said what a great gift it was to be stripped of everything in Vietnam. I think about that frequently, and I said, well, what does that mean for me? And I can never be poor. I'm middle class. I'm educated. But recently, the poverty has been the poverty of not having younger brothers. That's point one. Point two. Kevin, we were talking after the movie, and I said to myself, those were all older men, like myself, and some said that they didn't have any place to go back to in France, so they were going to stay. I said, I wonder if there had been a young Trappist there, what that young Trappist would have decided. I have a clearer idea this morning. The third point is that I receive a tremendous amount of affirmation from our colleagues. And what Dan said this morning, I believe they are saying to us. But it's wonderful to hear young men who are thinking about making that 100% commitment saying the same thing. So thank you.
My comment is a direct response to Brother Peter on the panel. Peter, when you spoke in response to Dan Roten this morning, you suggested that because you may have a different personality type, that maybe your energy or your enthusiasm are not expressed the same way as his. My comment to you is that's okay. And I believe that one of the distinctive features between we brothers and our partners like Dan and the volunteers is permanence. Many of us were in the novitiate before we were 18 years old, and many continue in some form of Lasallian service well into their 60s and 70s and beyond. So that even if you do have a high level of energy in the beginning, it does not last all the way to the same degree throughout life. So I would suggest, Peter, to you that as long as you take the opportunity to avail yourself of the ongoing formation programs, to attend to your personal care, and to find the places where you can make the contributions with the things you do well, that you need to be satisfied with that. For the reason in faith is that we believe God Himself is satisfied with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
3 points. Jimmy, I've known you since you were a young brother, and you're still a young brother at heart. And I want to thank you for the position that you have accepted in the new administration. I would think that maybe your position is as difficult as Dennis Malloy's, but I don't envy you, and I applaud you, and I thank you for being who you are as the vocation director. Number too. I'd like to thank each of the men who are sitting on stage up there. As a brother of 53 years, I am very excited to see you up there. And as I begin a new mission in another Catholic elementary school at the age of 70, I applaud your efforts to come and join us and hopefully to stay as long as I have stayed. And lastly, Jimmy, this is a frustration. Being in elementary school, even being at St. Gabe's, I find a frustration to say, what is my part in attracting young people to our life? I don't know what to do other than during the year our community sent a card to the novices. I've spoken to them already and said, I hope that you come to the LaSalle community in Brooklyn during the course of the year. But apart from that, I do not know what else to do in the vocation program. You probably may not have an answer other than to say prayer, but I would hope maybe you have some suggestions for those of us who are not in ministries that are connected with further school.
Boldly, rashly, unhesitatingly ask young men to come follow us in what we do. I think we have to be shiftless and bold and fearless. It's that important. That's the best I can say.
I would follow up gently, consistently, so that you really care for the students that you have. I worked with a group of nuns, Sisters of St. Benedict, Ferdinand, Indiana. Spent a week with them in 1997 teaching them computer applications, anywhere from, they were 26 all the way to 80 something. They were wonderful. And I said, why are you so loving? And one of the outspoken nuns says, this is how you see us now, but when we're in community, it can be war. And what she meant was, they were real with each other, they were honest with each other, and what that allowed them to do then was to be genuinely loving to the people that they invited into their lives. And that stuck with me, and at the end I told their vocations director, if I find a group of men that are trying to do the same thing, you know, I think that I might be joining. And it took me, that was 15 years before I joined the Brothers. So it's amazing what I think each of us individually will say at the time may it not seem to be important, but when we come back to it, it was a pivotal experience that actually showed us that we did have a vocation.
I'd be interested in the perception of panelists. We heard a presentation the other day about ordinary men doing extraordinary things versus extraordinary men doing ordinary things. Your initial perception of the Brothers. Which side? Ordinary men, extraordinary men. And has that perception changed since you've come to know?
I think whenever I entered high school, I had not heard of the Christian Brothers prior to then. I really didn't know much about them. And seeing a group of men walking around in black habits and not having a relationship with them, you kind of think that they are up here, extraordinary men, doing ordinary things, and it can be intimidating. After spending time getting to know them through LaSalle Youth, campus ministry, things like that, I realized that we have a lot more in common than I had initially perceived, and began to realize that they're not that different from myself, maybe my uncles, my father, positive male influences in my life. And I realized that they were just ordinary men doing extraordinary things. So I think that the perception changed as I got to know them better. but I don't think that brothers inherently are extraordinary. I think that they're men that are called to do extraordinary things, and they do it very well.
One of the hallmarks of the brothers that I've recognized since my freshman year of high school at Calvert Hall is they are men who are down to earth. And I don't see it as a question as either or in terms of are they ordinary men doing ordinary, extraordinary things, or are they extraordinary men doing ordinary things? I see it as both and. They're ordinary men who do extraordinary things, and by virtue of their call to live out a religious vocation as professed laymen brothers, they're extraordinary. So they're ordinary men at the same time. They are extraordinary men for what they have, the path they've chosen to follow.
I have to say, when I first came to West Catholic, I thought the brothers were just extraordinary. So they were on this pedestal, but then I went to the community and I realized ordinary, extraordinary things. I think that's a good thing. I love reading vocation stories, so Thomas Merton, James Martin, Jesuit, and I think I like reading them because when you read them, you realize that they had the same questions that you're having, that they had the same experiences. And I think when you read, well, at least when I read them, I connect with them. I think it's because of those ordinary qualities, facing the same challenges that really inspire me and as well. So I think extraordinary doing extraordinary things. I think that's it.
Anyone else want to comment on that? Okay, I'm sorry. Is there a question? Oh, Pat, I'm sorry.
I wanted to comment something that would connect what Jim said and what Charlie had said. I'll make an appeal for not everyone's the same. And I was thinking about when I was in high school, I did have a relationship with a lot of brothers. There are 4 brothers sitting here today who taught me a total of 9 courses, and some other brothers who have died or loved us, who had a great influence on me. Not one of them asked me to join the brothers. Of course, you might all think that was a pretty good idea. But I prefer to think they knew me. And if people know me, they know that if they would ask me, my reaction would have been no. And they waited. I think they influenced me. They had a great influence on me. And I still remember that day, like my junior year, Brother Thomas was my homework teacher, and I went up to him and suggested it. And he didn't push, he just started the ball rolling. And that's kind of the way to deal with me. And there have to be some other people out there like me. We've met a lot of them. There have to be some other people that are like that. So be careful about pushing. The relationship, yes. But some of us would have reacted negatively. So there are other ways to reach people. And I have to say, these men that taught me, I think they were extraordinary men doing extraordinary things. And I would wish that I could live up to them. But that's what influenced me.
Thanks, Pat. Bob?
I wanted to say something to you guys. In the last couple of years of my life, I have come to realize that it's as good as it gets. And I just want to say to you, it's really good having been a brother 45 years. And every step of the way, in the ups and the downs, has been really good.
I just have a question, I guess, directed to Anwar or Peter, in the sense that a lot of the research seems to indicate that many of the vocations, the future of the church is going to look much more Latino than it currently looks now, and that the vocation
outreach in that particular area. And Anwar, I think your story is remarkable, having been born and raised in another country to come here to discern the vocation. I think there's been a lot of things that maybe we take it for granted for somebody like yourself to enter into the district. Just to maybe speak to us as while we're here, what do you do to make somebody that's been born into a different culture come here to feel more welcome or to somehow make more of a connection with that population, which seems to be in need of an important outreach for the church in the United States?
Hello. I think that I really don't know how or why or the whole process of me coming out here instead of doing what I did with the Italian volunteers in Mexico. But for some reason, I just felt that what I was doing with my life, talking about the moment where you just think to yourself, is this what there is? And I really wanted to do more than just what I was doing. And I was, for some reason, I was traveling along the East Coast, and that's when it really hit me that the realization of doing more with my life. And the education field also seemed very attractive, and just browse on the internet, and that's how I met Bobby. And I remember that he was very also enthusiastic about the whole reaching out to the Latino population, which that was my initial passion. And I think that we have talked a lot. We have talked the talk a lot, but we haven't really done much of the walking. And I don't think I have an answer to that, but I think that just I think that the final push was the relationship that I was building with you, Bob, and when I was a volunteer with the brother there. And that really made me realize that, yes, I want to be of service. And another reason why I decided to join was because one time you said that you always, I don't know if it's true to this day, but that every single day you would wake up in the morning and say, I'm ready to go, and with a big smile. And I was like, is he on office? But before going to Napa, I would, in my homeroom, I would get there at 7:45 or 7:30-ish. And one time, one of my students stopped me, or one of the other kids in the hallway, and was like, are you okay, brother? And I said, yeah, why? You have this big grin on your face, and it's 7:30. What's wrong with you? But I think that what I would suggest to be at least, not at least, but more sensitive towards diversity or differences among ourselves as brothers. Like Pat said, we're not, we're very different, and I agree with that. So I think that's probably an initial step. And hopefully I will have the opportunity to work with my peeps, like I said, side by side with them in this country.
Dave.
I think reacting to the earlier comment, I was sitting here and thinking about, you work in a grammar school and how do you get involved. I think hearing Anwar talk about the Lasallian Volunteers and Peter talk about that encounter at the Lasallian Youth, there are a lot of those programs that go on every single year. And I know the high school students who attend the Lasallian Youth are always very excited when other brothers come and drop in and interact with them at the socials or go out on the service projects and show some interest. I think it's always great when the Lasallian Volunteers have some of their retreats and some of their programs that the brothers are very present and visible to those. And I think, it might be, good if people made a commitment to do that, because I think a lot of times you do touch their hearts there, and that's one way, not only for vocation promotion, but I think it certainly would help in the vocation promotion.
I'm sorry, brother, I can't see who you are back there, way in the back. Phil. Oh, Phil, okay.
I just want to mention some years ago there was a brother, I. Patrick, from Minnesota. And when he would walk across the campus, he would see a student, he never even knew him really. And he'd go over and say to the student, would you like to be a Christian brother? And the kid was startled. He said, yeah. And then the brother would say, Brother Patrick would say, if you're not sure, ask your roommate, maybe he does.
When I decided to be a brother, my friend told me, you love her so much and you play baseball all the time. You think you can be a monk for life? And I sit here, not only that, I feel like a brother without borders, because I told him, be confident, and baseball was my key to trust his heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that what each of you has done has hurt. You have done your own thinking. That's something I'm trying to impress on the community that I'm currently with. And maybe you realize and you have felt how vulnerable you have been in doing that. But in doing it, you have opened yourself and you have exposed yourself. And in doing that, it's the Holy Spirit that has walked in. And to succeed, you have to, I believe, continue, do your own thinking.
Thank you. Eddie.
If you were to ask me, is life worthwhile as a Christian brother, I have been a brother for, Messiah anyway, for 68 years. And I have to say, it was a wonderful opportunity to do many wonderful things, which I won't bore you with, telling all the things I have, marvelous things I've accomplished. But I will say, it has been such a remarkable and wonderful thing. I've been so enriched by living and being with the Christian brothers. It's the greatest treasure I have experienced the heavenly vision. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Be John.
I don't know if it's a comment or a question, but as I'm listening to you guys and I'm listening to Dan and tell us today we still need brothers, most of you still did have that encounter with a brother in high school, children, not all of you, I recognize that. I say in the past year, I did an interview with a teacher at one of our schools. She was vastly concerned that there are very few brothers. She didn't know that any more were coming. And she was afraid the students didn't know the brothers. School was very active in all the science stuff. She was afraid most of them did. She made a comment, and it struck me, I guess I should have said earlier to people, but she said, the vocation director's coming, all that, and it's not inspired what Jim's doing. But she said, you need to see, even if it's a week here or sometime there, our students need to see brothers. They need to see them somehow. And if you don't have them to send them to teach, send them somehow. And I don't know what that means and what the challenge is for us. But her reaction was, there's lots of kids here that might consider this, but I don't mind asking them, but if they don't see brothers, how are they going to understand it? So, in that case, I don't know if you can send us teachers, but somehow connect us, the one-time visit, a
the vocation director is good, but it doesn't get it done. How are ways you can get brothers to visit, to talk, to interact with our students? I just heard that out there. Maybe it's a challenge for us as we go forward, especially with more of our schools that this may happen to in the future.
John, one of the best things that we had with the novitiate, I know there are a lot of comments that were we ever in the novitiate, but we had the opportunity to visit almost every school in California under the San Francisco district. And they would send us there for 4 or 5 days to hit the vocations. At Christian Brothers Sacramento, we saw every student for the whole week. We know our own stories better than anybody. I think we've heard them enough. We went to St. Mary's, Berkeley, Sacred Heart, San Francisco, LA, and whatnot, and we spent a week there with students. And sometimes then we saw them at a retreat, for vocations. And then we saw them again at St. Mary's Youth Jamboree. And all these kids came up to us that we only saw for a week. Brother, do you remember me? Brother, do you remember me? And they were very, it's like, of course I remember you. But there was a connection. And, I said this to Peter just kind of in glib because his brother from Brooklyn came and saw us. It's kind of like, because there are fewer people that want to go out and do the vocation pitch, then maybe, it's a priority. We just can't, whatever was working is sending a brother for a few days. Maybe that's not a connection. But maybe you have to send them in a group to hit them. I remember, just when I was a freshman at De La Salle, almost every teacher I had was a brother. And that's 30 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago. But the kids today, you wonder if they see one. So I would say send a troop and kind of beat the drum just to let them know that they're around.
I just want to say something really quickly because it was, I think, Alyssa and the panel yesterday talked about that it's also a responsibility of our lay partners to foster not only vocations to be an associate or an affiliated member or whatnot, but also to the consecrated life. And when I heard that, I was like, thank you. Because when I was moving out to Napa, I ran into a number of the mothers at LaSalle High School, and they were expressing their, we're going to miss you so much, and you and the other brothers are always around at the events and whatnot, and blah. But then I would turn it around to them, and I would ask them, have you, how many sons do you have? 3. And if one of them, wanted to tell you that he would like to try the Brothers Life out, or what are you doing to foster that? It's like, we're not growing in plants. I wish that there was a machine, a Coke machine, quarter, brother. But that's just not going to happen. So I think that another area that we have to explore more is the families. I think it's very important. That's it. Thank you.
John, you're right on. You hit the nail on the head with that. Our vocation is something that people need to experience. Listing of what we do, how we consecrate ourselves, and what our mission is. It's kind of spare looking, really, when you read it. But I think it's the experience of our men working together, living together, praying together, and doing what we do so well with our students that makes that little bit that's in a brochure come alive. I agree with you 100%.
Brothers, thank you. Noon is upon us. I want to share with you my favorite vocation story from my time as vocation director a number of years as we get ready to depart. I was the vocation director for the Legacy Baltimore District back in the early 90s. And fired up the way Jim Dries is, I was making the grand tour of the district, speaking to all of the senior boys and all of the high schools and so forth. But there were a number of schools, of course, that were co-ed, one of them being Seton LaSalle in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. So it wasn't quite clear how we would handle me speaking with the boys, what happens with the girls. So I spoke with one of the Sisters of Charity, who was, I think, the vice principal at the time, and she said, well, brother, what should we do? I said, well, why don't you get a sister to speak to the girls, and I will speak to the boys. That sounds good, brother. And I said, and before you speak to these girls, you should probably, with your community, identify several of the girls that you think might make a good sister of charity. Oh, that's a wonderful idea, brother. We'll do that. And then, as Jim suggests, make sure you invite that girl to consider becoming a sister. Call her in individually and say, have you ever thought about being a sister? Okay, brother, I'll do that. Well, it comes the day that I come in and I give my speech, my talk to all the boys at Seton LaSalle, and this other sister had done the same thing with the girls. And at the end of the day, I walk into this sister's room and I said, Sister, how did it do? How did you do? And she said, Brother, I'm never going to follow anything you say again. And I said, uh-oh, what happened? Yeah, well, the sisters in our convent think that Susie Jones would make a wonderful sister of charity, so I invited her in and I said, Susie, have you ever considered becoming a sister? And she burst into tears. And she said, Sister, you're only saying that because you think I can't get a man. So I'm going to turn things over to Jim Martino to offer directions for the next segment of the morning. Afternoon, Jim. Thank you to our panel. Thank you.
Nope. Well, first of all, okay. Yesterday we recognized him, but he's here this morning somewhere. Still, we might recognize our webmaster and member of district communication team, Al Cassidy. Oh, African names. Brother Beckett is here from St. Raymond's Community. I'm not going to even try. Brother Beckett, brother studied at Fordham University. Who lives in St. Raymond's Community. Well, this lunch day was scheduled at 12:30, so we really haven't deviated too far from our worlds, though your stomachs may disagree with me. On page 71 of your booklets is the vision statement. When we gathered as district for the first time in constitutive assembly, we believed it was appropriate to create vision for our future. Vision for mission, vision for formation, vision for vocation, and vision for community. And the document you have speaks to the voice and dream and vision of the brothers at Constitutive Assembly. This morning they reiterate our need for and support our idea for vision for the future as we continue to attract such quality young men to consider who we are, what we do, and to follow in our way. We've put the vision statement further before the district chapter for comment and sharing of ideas. And this afternoon, or this morning for a few minutes, we're going to put it before you as district to consider in your small groups. We'll then take all that input, some input from the mission assembly that will see it as well, and work on some update for the second part of district chapter. That being process, what you really need to do this morning is leave here, go over to your small groups, consider questions 33 through 36 on your question sheet, discuss them until about 12:30, have your leader drop the answer off, and then go to lunch. Thank you, brothers. Enjoy.
I'm not even going to try. At least not in that
I know. If Marianne has anything to do with it, it'll probably be hard for you to take part time.